Good morning, all of you. Today we will start with a new chapter in civics, our criminal justice system. It is on page B102, criminal justice system. Now, one of the most important functions of the government now it is to maintain peace and harmony, order in society, and if we want prosperity, our country to grow and to prosper and to develop, the country, society, and individual also. Now, if we want prosperity and growth and development for individual or for the entire country, you know peace is uh, very essential, and only when we are peaceful then we'll be able to really achieve our heights. And this peace, this law and order in the society is managed by the police and the courts. Now, this chapter, criminal justice system, now if you remember in the last chapter that we did, we studied about two types of cases, the civil cases and the criminal cases. Do you remember anything about the civil cases and the criminal cases? What were the civil
Yes,
cases?
ma'am.
Yes, civil cases.
Ma'am, in civil cases, ma'am, cases like for house or for property or for our fundamental rights, these type of cases come. And in criminal cases, ma'am, it was a type of murder, or if someone has beaten or someone, like
Okay,
these type of cases.
all right. Okay, now what you said about the civil cases, only the fundamental cases they are different. Okay, but otherwise cases on property and marriage and guardianship and will and divorce, now they all fall under rent and all, they all fall under civil cases, whereas criminal cases we have murder, fraud, robbery, rape and all that. Now they all come under the criminal cases. Now criminal cases, the procedure for a criminal case is different as that compared to a civil case. And because criminal cases, they are done by breaking a law. So when you break a law you commit a crime. All right, so they are acts of crime which are done by breaking law. And so the whole procedure of a criminal case and a civil case is quite different. And we will see that how a criminal case proceeds in a court of law, and what our whole criminal justice system is about, that we'll see during the course of this chapter. And they have given a story to help us to understand this concept better. So now let's see what the story is about. Okay, so this is 16th May 2004, and Sohan Singh, he goes to the house of Ramesh Sharma, and he wants to get his loan of 10,000 rupees back, which he has given to Mr. Sharma 3 years ago. So he has given him 10,000 rupees 3 years ago. Mr. Sohan Singh has given 10,000 to Mr. Ramesh Sharma, and he wants his money back. And so he goes to his house and says that this is my fifth visit to you, and when will you return my money? And so Ramesh Sharma is like, what money are you talking about? I didn't take any money from you, and you are telling a lie. So now Sohan Singh, he is very angry. He said that how could you speak such a thing? And when you were in need, and I gave you money just like that, and you were very close to me at that time, so I gave you money just like that, and now you are talking to me like that. And so Mr. Ramesh Sharma, he's like, what proof do you have that you gave me the money? And now you may do whatever you want to wish, you get lost, I have not taken any money from you. So Sohan Singh says that okay, I will teach you a lesson and you will have to pay for that. And so on 20th May, Sohan Singh, he comes to the house of Mr. Sharma, and he comes with two men who were armed with lathis. And so as soon as Mr. Ramesh Sharma, he comes out of his house, so he is beaten with lathis. And so he collapses, he falls down unconsciously on the ground, and he bleeds too much. And okay, so same day, Mr. Ramesh Sharma, he goes to a hospital, and the doctor, he examines him, ties a bandage to his head, and also writes an injury report, that how much injury and what injury he has sustained. So he writes that, and Ramesh Sharma, Then he goes to the police station and he says that, sir, to the inspector there, that I've come to file an FIR. What is an FIR? Full form of
First
FIR?
information report.
Right, first information report. So, first information report of a crime that has been committed. So, he said that I have come to file an FIR, and Sohan Singh and his two accomplices, means the people who helped him in something. Now, they came to my house, beat me with lathis, and they injured me, and this is the report of the doctor. Okay, so FIR is filed in, and the police, they start the investigation on the basis of the FIR. So FIR is the first thing, and on that basis only the police starts to investigate in a criminal case. And so on the very next day, a police team which is led by SI Chaudhary, they visit Sohan Singh's house, and he is arrested. And then the police tells him that you have hit Mr. Sharma with lathis and you have injured him, and so on that ground you are being arrested. And they also ask him that where are the other two people, and you take us to their house. The next day, a person, when he is arrested, accused person, he is to be presented before a magistrate within 24 hours of his arrest. And so after 24 hours, the police, they present Mr. Sohan Singh to the in front of the court. Then so the police said that, sir, this accused, he beat Mr. Ramesh Sharma with lathis and he injured his head also, and we need custody for 14 days so that we can examine them, and we could also go to the scene of the crime, and we also want to recover the weapon of offense, means the weapon with which all this has been done. And so the judge, he says that okay, the accused should be kept in police custody for 14 days. All right, then 5th June 2004, the police, after they have taken the custody, they go to the crime scene and they collect evidences, and they also talk to witnesses, and they collect their statements also. And so finally the police, they file a charge sheet, and in the magistrates court. Now the charge sheet is a paper containing all the charges against the accused, and it also contains the statements of the witnesses. uh, and so then they give a copy of the charge sheet to Mr. Sohan Singh also. And so Mr. Singh, he tells the court that he cannot afford a lawyer, and so the magistrate appoints advocate Raman Pandey as Sohan Singh's lawyer, and that also at the expenditure of the government. Now that is according to the article 22 of the constitution, that every person has a fundamental right to be defended by a lawyer. And then article 39A, it also says, place this duty on the state or on the government, that if a person is poor and he is not able to provide for himself a lawyer, then the state or the government should provide that person with a lawyer. And so the government provides Mr. Sohan Singh with a lawyer. And then this is 12th June 2004, and after 14 days in police custody, the accused, he finally manages to get a bail with the help of his lawyer. And during this time, the police, they also recovered the lathis and the blood stained shirt of Mr. Sharma, and the police also recorded the statements of the two eyewitnesses. Okay, then the accused, means Mr. Sohan Singh, he meets his defense lawyer Raman Pandey in his chamber in the court, and says that, sir, these are the papers of my case, and I have hit Mr. Sharma, but when he threatened to shoot me with a pistol, so he threatened that he will shoot me with a pistol, and because of that I have hit him with a lathi, and I plead not guilty, that I am not guilty in this case, as what I did only because of self defense. Okay, so the trial begins. That is 15th September, the trial begins. And so the person, the accused Sohan Singh, he says that I plead that I have not done anything, I plead not guilty, and Mr. Sharma, he threatened to kill me with his pistol, and I hit him in self defense, and it is only because I was in panic and I was panicking and in self defense that I have hit him. And he says that I claim trial and the public prosecutor means the advocate which is on the side of the public or the government and which is presenting the case on behalf of the victim, that is Ramesh Sharma in this case. And so he tells the court that so on that fateful day, Mr. Sharma he came out of his house and Mr. Singh he abused him and challenged him, and as soon as he was out of the house, so he and the two people with him they hit him with lathis and he fell down bleeding and became unconscious. And the doctor injury, it says that he got a 2-inch deep cut in his head, and the investigating officer, that is the IO, he has also recovered the lathis and the blood stained shirt of Mr. Sharma, and he has also recorded the statement of two witnesses. And so he presents his case. The judge asks that where is the IO, investigating officer, and he should present the weapon of offense and the blood stained shirt. Present the prosecution witness. And so the IO, the investigating officer, he appears in the box and he presents the above items to the court. Okay, then the witness on the side of the public prosecutor, on the side of the victim, now he is presented in the court, and so the advocate asked him that what did you see on that particular day. So he said that, sir, I saw Mr. Sharma was being beaten with lathis by Mr. Singh and his men, and that he fell down bleeding. So the judge he hears till here and he adjourns the case till the next date. Okay, so the next date is 21st October 2004, and now the defense lawyer he begins to cross examine the witness which was presented by the prosecution, the public prosecutor. And so he says that, okay, you tell me that how Mr. Sharma he provoked my client Mr. Sohan Singh, and why means didn't he take out a pistol to threaten him. And then he asked him that how did you happen to come on the scene. So the witness on the side of the victim he says that no, he did not bring out a pistol, and I came on the scene which I heard when I heard the whole noise. And so the advocate asked him, but at that time you were in your fields working, and your fields is so far away from the house, so how could the noise reach so far, travel so far. So the witness says that no sir, that was not the case, and I was in my house which is a stone throws distance, means very near to Mr. Sharma's house. Okay, so another prosecution witness is examined. So this was the first, then there was one more, there were two witnesses by the prosecution, so the other one is also cross examined. And so the other person also says that I was also at my house, and which is near to Mr. Sharma's house, and I also came out when I heard the noises, and I saw him being beaten by Mr. Singh and his men. So the judge hears till here, and then he again adjourns the case till the next date. Next date is 25th October 2004, and now the defense lawyer, earlier the public prosecutor he has presented two witnesses, and now the defense lawyer he presents a witness, and this witness says that, sir, I saw that Mr. Sharma he was holding out a gun and he was threatening Mr. Sohan Singh, and out of panic, means Mr. Singh and his men got so panicked that they ran away and they did not hit Mr. Sharma at all. And but the sir, the doctor, and then the advocate he tells the court that the doctor he was pressurized and to write the injury report, but nothing like that had happened. Okay, but now the advocate on the side of the victim he says, but the doctor injury report it says that Mr. Sharma he got a 2-inch deep injury in his head, and the doctor report it cannot be wrong. And then he says, sir, the defense lawyer he is telling a lie. And so the judge asked the defense lawyer that how can you prove that the injury report is wrong. And because the blood stained shirt it proves that there had been an assault, that Mr. Sohan Singh and his men have really hit Mr. Ramesh Sharma. And so the judge again he adjourns the case till the next date. And then on 8th November 2004, because the prosecution They were able to prove beyond any doubt that Mr. Singh he was guilty, and the defense lawyer he was not able to prove that Mr. Sohan Singh he was not guilty, but the public prosecutor he was able to prove that Mr. Sohan Singh he was guilty, and so the judge he gave his judgment. And let's see what he says. He says that taking into account the injury report and when the weapon of offense it was also recovered, there were testimony of witnesses and there were other evidences also, and on the basis of all that the court it holds Mr. Sohan Singh guilty of assaulting Mr. Sharma and also causing a grievous injury to his head, on account of which he could have also died. And so the court gives him a punishment, and the punishment was 1 year simple imprisonment and a fine of 5,000 rupees. And then he says to the accused person, Mr. Sohan Singh, that if the accused wishes, he can file a separate case in the civil court for the recovery of his money. And so the case it came to an end. Now that is how a criminal case it proceeds in a court of law in our country. And now from the above incident, you can see that there are four important players in our criminal justice system, that is the police, the public prosecutor, the defense lawyer, and the judge. So four important players, and now let us have a look at their roles in detail and also in general. So first we'll have a look at the role of the police. Now, as you have already read in the story above, that one of the primary functions of the police is to file an FIR on the basis of the complaint of the victim of a crime. So when a victim comes to the police station telling about a crime, so that it is the responsibility of the police to file an FIR. And after the FIR is filed in, the police they begin their investigation, and the investigation it includes some things. First is that they compile, bring together the information regarding under what circumstances the crime took place, means what circumstances led to a crime. So they gather information regarding that. Then they go to the scene of crime and they collect all the relevant evidences. Then they also try to recover the weapon of offense and record statements of witnesses. And then on the basis of all this, if the police think that the initial evidence they point that the accused is guilty, so he is arrested, and then the accused person is presented in the court of a magistrate within 24 hours. And the police then they can ask for extension of custody for the accused person for a few days more to collect further evidence. And now this is normally granted by the judge, and in this case also the police they asked for 14-day custody, and which was granted by the judge. And then on the basis of investigation into various aspects, the police then they file a charge sheet in the court, and this charge sheet is to be filed in within a maximum period of 3 months. So within a period of 3 months, this charge sheet has to be filed in by the police in the magistrate's court. Then the trial in the court, now that is held on the basis of this charge sheet only, and it is not the duty of the police to determine that whether the accused is guilty or he is innocent. Now that is for the judge to decide. So the police they only collect the evidences and get the report of the eyewitness. They collect all the evidences and everything, weapon of offense, and they simply file a charge sheet. Then it is on the judge to decide whether the accused is guilty or innocent. Now as we have read earlier, and we know also that there is rule of law. Now rule of law implies that everyone is equal before law and no one is above the law. So in that case, even the police and the courts, they also have to function according to the law. Even though they are investigating and looking after a crime, still they cannot do anything which is above the law or against the law. So they also have to do everything according to the law. And so the police they have to conduct this investigation according to the law, and they also have to respect the fundamental rights and the human rights of the accused. So the person who is accused, he is still not pronounced guilty. He is still an accused, and an accused person also has some fundamental rights and human rights, and they need to be respected by the police as well as the courts. And according to these rights, the police, they are not allowed to torture, beat, or threaten the accused or the victim or the witnesses during the process of investigation. And the police, they cannot uh, inflict any punishment on a person for any offense, anything wrong that they have done, whether it is big or small, major or minor, does not matter. But the police, they cannot give any punishment to an accused person. And the Supreme Court, they have also given certain guidelines for the police to follow during arresting a person or detaining a person or interrogating a person. Okay. Article 22 of the Constitution, now it guarantees the following fundamental rights to a citizen: that no person who is arrested shall be detained. Means if you want to arrest a person and detain a person in custody, then the person has to be told on what grounds he has been arrested, means what wrong he has done to be arrested and to be held under custody. So the person has to be informed of what wrong he has done. Then even if a person has done something wrong, he is accused, he has been arrested in custody, still such person also shall not be denied the right to consult a or be to be defended by a legal practitioner of his or choice. So even if a person has been accused of doing some crime, but still that person cannot be denied the right to be defended by a legal practitioner of law of his or her choice. Then every person who is arrested and detained in custody, the person shall be produced before the magistrate within a period of 24 hours, and this time is excluding the time which takes up for the journey from the place of arrest to the court of the magistrate. But still a person who is arrested and detained under law for providing for preventive detention, now that person can be imprisoned without a trial for a period of 3 months. Now the Criminal Procedure Code, it guarantees some more rights to a person, that a person has a right not to be ill treated or tortured during arrest or in custody. So a person who is arrested, accused person who is arrested or in custody, still he cannot be ill treated or tortured during that time. And whatever confession is made by an accused in police custody, now those confessions cannot be used by the police as evidence against him in the court. However, the confessions can be brought to the notice of the court, and then it can be used as a plea to ask for further custody, all right, for the sake of investigation. But whatever confessions a person makes in the police custody, that cannot be used as evidence in the court of law. And boys under 15 years of age and women all year, all right, irrespective of their age, they cannot be called to the police station just for questioning. So boys under 15 years and women of all ages, they cannot be called to police station just for questioning. Okay. Filing a first information report. Now FIR is the short or the abbreviated form of first information report, and it is the first hand information of a crime or an incident which is recorded by the police officer on duty at the nearest police station. So FIR is normally filed in at the nearest police station or in the area of jurisdiction where the crime has been occurred. Like ideally, if a crime has taken place in Hazratganj area, so it should be the FIR should be filed in at the Hazratganj police station ideally. But then there are cases when you can even file it in other courts also now. So now on the basis of the FIR, the police, they start the investigation, and the FIR, it can be launched by the victim or even by any person on behalf of the victim or even an eyewitness. So FIR can be filed in by the victim himself, all right, or by any person on behalf of the victim or even by an eyewitness. And the law states that it is compulsory for the police officer in charge of the police station to register an FIR whenever a person he comes to him to give him information about a crime. Okay, now this information can be given to the police orally also, or as well as in writing. An FIR can usually be filed in the police station of the concerned area. Like I told you, the FIR is usually filed in the police station of the concerned area, or under whose jurisdiction is area of authority. So like I told you that if the crime has taken place in Hazratganj area, so ideally it should be, the FIR should be filed in Hazratganj police station. Now the FIR, it mentions the date, the time, the place of the offense, the basic facts of the offense, and the description of the events, and it also tells the name and address of the accused person. Now if they know who has done this, sometimes if there's a robbery, we don't know who did it, so obviously you cannot tell the person that who is the accused person according to you, so you will give the other details. But in case then the name and the address of the accused person, that also needs to be mentioned, and along with the name and address of the complainants, of the person who goes to file the FIR, his name and address is also mentioned in the FIR. And there's a particular form in which the police, they register the FIR, and then it is signed by the complainant. Mean the person who goes to file a complaint, he is called a complainant. Now although an FIR is to be launched only at the police station under which jurisdiction the crime has taken place, but a situation might arise where the nearest police station does not have jurisdiction of an area. But sometimes what happens, a situation might come where the FIR can be filed in even in the police station under whose jurisdiction the crime has not taken place. And now according to a judgment given by the court in 1999, Satvinder Kaur versus Government of NCT of Delhi, 1999. Now this cannot be the ground to refuse registration of an FIR. And if you go to the police station to file an FIR, the police officer on duty cannot say to this crime did not took place in our jurisdiction, in our area, and so we will not file an FIR. So that they cannot do. The Supreme Court has given verdict on that, and this cannot be the ground to refuse registration of an FIR. This would cause delay in collection of evidences and investigation by the police, because if it is done, then FIR is not filed in, and so the investigation will also be hampered. Because of that, there would be delay in that also. And the court, it stated that the officer in charge of the nearest police station is obliged by law to lodge an FIR. And so the Supreme Court, they have given the order that the officer in charge at the nearest police station, he is obliged to file the FIR, and the matter that can be later on transferred to the concerned police station. So as of now, the FIR, it can be filed in any police station, and later on it is the responsibility of that particular police station to pass on the concerned information to that particular police station under whose jurisdiction the crime has taken place. The Supreme Court, it is also ruled under section 154 of the Criminal Procedure Code that the police have no choice, but they have to register an FIR, and the complainant he has a legal right to even get a copy of the FIR from the police. And if the SHO or the station house officer, he refuses to file an FIR, the complainant, he can go to the senior most police officer of the area. Usually he is the superintendent of police or the deputy commissioner of police. And if this police officer, he too refuses to file the FIR, then the aggrieved person, he can directly go to the magistrate and get an FIR registered under section 156(3) of the Criminal Procedure Code. So if the police station, they have to file, if they are not filing, then you can go to the highest police officer of your area. If he also doesn't file the FIR, then you can straight away go to the magistrate's court and to register the FIR. And the court, then they will appoint an investigating officer to examine the case and also to collect the evidence. Okay, we turn the page and we'll come to the green box that we have left, and we'll do that also. There had been so many complaints against the ill treatment of police. So the Supreme Court, they have given certain specifications and requirements and clear cut procedures. They have also laid down some procedures that the police and the other agencies, they have to follow during arrest, detention and interrogation of any person, and they are known as the DK Basu guidelines. Some of the procedures given under the DK Basu guidelines are: the police officials who carry out the arrest or who carry out the interrogation, they should wear clear, accurate and visible identification and name tags. Means the name on their name tag, it should be clear, and they should wear that visible identification mark should be there, and along with their name, their designation should also be mentioned. Then a memo of arrest should be prepared at the time of arrest. So a memorandum, it should be prepared at the time of arrest, and in it the time and date of arrest need to be mentioned, and the memorandum should also be attested by at least one witness, and then it should be countersigned. It should also be signed by the person who is arrested. Then the person arrested, detained or who is being interrogated, he has a right to inform his relative, friend or a well-wisher. And if the friend or a well-wisher, if the person is living alone and he does not have anyone living with him, then a friend or a relative who lives outside the district, so the time, place of arrest and venue of custody, it should be told by the police within 8 to 12 hours of arrest. So if the person is living alone, then it is the responsibility of the person to tell about his arrest, why he is arrested and the place where he is being held under custody. Now it should be informed to a friend or to a relative within 8 to 12 hours. Okay, so for today we'll stop here. Have you understood what we have done till now?
Yes, ma'am.
Any confusion?
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay.